Hello and welcome to the Swine Disease Reporting System. This is report number 65, where we're going to cover the findings from the previous month, the month of June. My name is Edson Magalhães, here with the SDRS.
Hello, my name is Giovanni Treves, I'm with the SDRS.
Hi, my name is Guilherme, also at SDRS.
Hello, Daniel Linhares here, also with the SDRS team.
And today, as I mentioned, we're going to cover the findings from the previous month of the SDRS. And in addition to that, the SDRS team will explain the news for the SDRS expansion through the USDA-NIFA funding. We are going to explain the next steps, the importance of expanding disease monitoring using diagnostic data, and the impact of on the swine industry. Again, welcome to the Swine Disease Report podcast.
Thank you, Edson, for the introduction. But before we go for that, Guilherme, would you mind highlight what are the June finds for the SDRS report?
Yes, Giovanni, starting with the PRRS virus, that is our first page. The detection is still within expected during June, but at a regional level, we are having an increased activity in the state of Ohio, that is 3 standard deviations above the expected of the positive submissions. And moving to the sequencing part that we analyzed, the SDRS team identified a different pattern of detection for PRRS virus sequences assigned as a L1C variant, because when we look to the other strains, historically, the PRRS virus sequences that are assigned as L1A or L1C, when you look to that, they have a decrease in the number of detection in the summer, but specifically the L1C variant, it has a different trend that in the summer, it starts to increase.
And what the advisory group thinks about this increase during the summer?
Yes, the advisory group correlated that with the high viral load that usually this strain has compared with the others. Also the possible longer period of shedding that also occurs, and also the increased survivability in the environment that are possible attributes that are pointed by the advisory to make this PRRS virus L1C variant being more resistant and keep being detected during the summertime.
So there is I understand that this strain is different than the others in some way to behave there. Thank you for sharing that. And how about the enteric coronavirus? Any information there?
Yeah, for the enteric coronavirus, we are having unusual activity because usually in the summer we have a decrease in detection in Delta coronavirus and also PD, but we are having some regional increased activity. For example, for Delta, we are having the states of Kansas and Illinois that are having more activity of this virus. And for PD, South Dakota, Missouri, and also North Carolina.
Any interaction with the advisory group about that and what is being seen in the field?
Yeah, like the advisory group mentioned that usually the summertime is the time that you do large maintenance in the farms, and usually they are pretty good to keep the virus outside of the sites, but probably in this summer right now has some failures in biosecurity that let the virus sneak in these sites and have this increased activity in these specific states. And also the increased susceptible population, which mean like more guilds coming in that are susceptible to the enteric coronavirus in positive sites, that also they lose the kind of the control inside of the site and have this increased activity of these 2 pathogens.
So at the end of the day, some opportunities to improve biosecurity and biocontainment practices there in the production systems to try to reduce the regional activity of these pathogens. And how about influenza?
Yeah, moving to the influenza, it remains an increased detection in June with around 37% of positive submissions in the winter market and 33% for South Farm. That we had this uptick in the last month in May, and it continues to happen. And this is a kind of different compared with the other years that usually we have an increase in the mid-spring, and the late spring, this detection is going down. And right now we are going through the summer with increased detection of influenza that was kind of pushed to the end of the spring and now beginning of summer with this increased detection.
Thank you for sharing that, Guilherme.
Thank you, Giovanni.
Thanks, Guilherme. So now let's move to our discussion here. So as I mentioned before, the SDRS is going to have an expansion supported by the USDA-NIFA funds that were awarded to this team. So a question for Daniel and Giovanni. So what was the idea behind the expansion of the SDRS? What's the importance of improving the use of diagnostic data for disease monitoring?
Great question, Edson. And before we go to answer your question here, one thing that we need to bring to the audience is that why we did move forward for this USDA grant. Well, has been request from the stakeholders upon the SDRS about we have information there, but can we go beyond that information, do further analysis, and keep expanding the project? So in response to the stakeholders, we move ahead and try to get this funding from the USDA to leverage the current resource that has been provided by the Swine Health Information Center to maintain the project. And now we move on to expand the project to an integrated component that about research, extension, outreach, and education there on this SDRS NIFA funded grant there.
It's the mindset of continuous improvement, right? We started with one pathogen, 2 labs that created value. The stakeholders kept asking for more. So here we are with several pathogens and still growing the number of labs that are participating. That creates a big data, big VDL data, and opportunity to keep digging to better serve the industry with the data that we have access to today.
And that's a very important point, Daniel. It's a collaborative project. It's not only the 4 of us there, but all of the participant VDLs are included in this grant that went for the USDA with specific deliverables that come from each one of the participant VDLs.
And Giovanni, keep talking about the proposal itself and the expansion. One of the goals of the development of the SDRS is to keep track of the PRRS virus and the genomic data, and also associated that with see if we are having an emerging of a different variant in the field. So what is the rationale behind it, and how are we going to do that to improve the detection of PRRS and also to keep track of these animal threats that might going to happen in the field?
That's a great example why we want to do that next mileage in the data analysis. If you look today, we report detection of PRRS by PCR and trends in lineage and RFLP of PRRS virus. But we have this large data set of more than 90,000 sequence that is present in the SDRS that we want to go further to analyze those sequence data and understand what is the mega trends of detections using the genetic information at an overall in the regional level to further provide information for producers and stakeholders of the swine industry.
And Guilherme, with all this data, right, lots of data, lots of submissions, a lot of samples from many labs, and people still ask, as they should, what's the representativeness of this data set and the reports and everything to the swine industry? That's one of the points that this USDA grant is going to help us address. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, actually, now we're going to be able to analyze like the representativeness of the data set that we have. So how many submissions is coming from a specific state, and how much this represents in terms of hog farms that we have there, and also hog inventory. So with this kind of information, we could track if we have some specific state that is misrepresented by our data set, and we could jump in and find a laboratory that's going to increase this representativeness, or even like recruit veterinarians from this specific state, so we can have more information about what's going on in some specific region of the US.
And Guilherme, besides that, there is the potential to also look at co-detections, right? We just said we started with one pathogen, and now multiple pathogens, bringing the ability to visit on not only single but multiple things going on at the same time. What's the rationale behind that? Can you further elaborate?
Yeah, like nowadays we have the data of specific pathogens, right? Like when you go to have the PRRS virus page, the mycoplasma page, the influenza page, but all these pathogens, they interact between each other, so among each other. So what we can do right now with this further expansion is trying to analyze like the co-detections of them. And for example, if we are having an emerge of a co-detection of mycoplasma in PRRS, we could see the disease dynamics that is behind what is an increased detection of mycoplasma in a specific month, and if it's associated with, for example, more PRRS virus cases associated with mycoplasma.
Mm-hmm.
So a question for Daniel now. You know also that the SDRS is going to invest more in educational extension material for disseminating this information provided by the project, and also for training future veterinarians. So could you elaborate more about what's coming on that arena?
Yeah, the extension component, it speaks to the to the task of communicating and discussing and bringing the knowledge to the field and back, right? To do that, have that two-way highway, bring to the producers, to the practicing vets, to the officials and all the stakeholders here, people from academia, and have a big discussion not only on the findings of the SDRS itself, but on this whole concept of taking advantage of VDL data, this whole concept of taking advantage of aggregated data and bringing that back to the field, and just talking about that and making sure that it's very well communicated and disseminated, and information with enough information exchange to all the way from the university to the barn level and back.
And on that extension piece, one thing that we want to do is interact a lot of producers now to understand if the report really should go for a producer level, or if we should focus on the veterinarians that provide technical service to them, that they should really be keeping track of the information detection, or if we can make the project more a producer friendly that goes for this level of information to provide for the stakeholders a better dissemination of what we have been found in this database in terms of trends in pathogens detections there, that they could take action in terms of prevent the further spread of pathogens across farms.
And also, Giovanni, about the training of the students as well, because it's a part of the proposal. So not only the graduate students, but also the veterinary students to be more aware of the surveillance methods and how we can keep track of these pathogens in the field, so we can kind of improve the knowledge of the next generation in terms of surveillance and monitoring the disease in the field.
No doubt about that. That's one of the critical components of the project now. We have not been interacting with the veterinary students that are part of this university that compose the SDRS. So now we want to add that piece of a component of going back to this class of these that are taught for these students, and at least put in front one example of how they can use veterinary diagnostic data in an anonymized way to understand the mega trends of pathogen detections. And that is for training these veterinary students that if they want to come for the swine industry, they will be well received to perform the career here. But if they go for other industries, they can take the example of the swine industry, what we are doing, and apply for the respective industries and keep moving the needle in terms of using data that we have and generate information that applies and can come back with examples that can change the way that we do disease control and preventions in the different sectors of the industry there. And of course, another thing that I want to add here is in terms of training students, for this project to be successful, we also need graduate students in terms of masters and PhD students that want to have a real boots on the ground training of using data. So that's welcome for the project, and we have opportunities in this area for masters and PhD students to come on board of the project too.
Oh, that was great, guys. Very exciting news. We're looking forward to see the next steps of this project. So as we have discussed here, all the changes and implementations that we're going to be doing over time as part of this expansion funded by the USDA-NIFA support. We're going to be communicating that with you guys through the monthly reports and also through other platforms. So with that, I would like to thank the whole team here and see you guys next month. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.